As 2020 comes to a close and Genshin Impact approaches a quarter of a year since release, let's take a moment to look back at some of the best team builds in the game so far. Hi, I'm Concept2, and in case you don't know me yet, I make videos helping you build your dream team with just the units you own. I'd like to think that I'm one of the only content creators that caters his build videos to each and every one of you, providing you with multiple builds and budget options so that you can have a team that not only has high damage output, but also allows you to play the game the way you really want to. Whether you're still looking for a team build that satisfies your playstyle or want to try something new going into 2021, I have some great recommendations for you. We'll be going over 5 of the best and my favorite team comps of 2020, then look at some budget options for all you Dolphins or free-to-play gamers out there. Finally, we'll finish it up with a few fan favorites that my viewers have thoroughly enjoyed. Excited? Let's get right into it! My number 5 features Razor, Fischl, one of Diona, Qiqi or Kaya, and Zhongli or Xingyan. We're starting things off with a cheap but effective build. Here, you set Razor up to mow mobs down with his white damage centric profile and combine him with a bunch of shielding and resistances so that he can mitigate a lot of damage during his burst uptime. Fischl is in here for Electro Resonance so that you have higher burst uptime. You pick one of the 3 good cryo supports for your superconduct enabler. I like Diona the best due to the shields being so valuable, especially in floor 12. Zhongli is slotted in here for more shielding and some AoE crowd control. You can also swap in Xingyan here for the shielding plus the added physical damage bonus from P4. To add on, this comp is very beginner friendly and best fit for those who just like to hack and slash. It's so easy to pilot, just make sure to proc superconduct every 12 seconds with your Diona combined with either your Fischl or Razor. Then swap on Razor and basic attack your enemies to death. This team does very well in all types of content. For Abyss, you can usually swap out Fischl for a Pyro user to deal with Fatui floors. Overall, white damage is generically good against every situation, but it's certainly not going to net you those sexy 100k plus crits that you would be able to get with melt or vape comps. To some, this comp may seem boring because it's super linear and doesn't have a lot of cool combo sequences and synergies. My number 4 features Keqing, Xingqiu, Zhongli, and Venti, or Sucrose and Jean. This is one of my favorite team comps to play. I think a lot of people overrate how much healers are needed, especially in a team build like this, where you have access to really good shielding from Zhongli, damage reduction and pseudo healing from Xingqiu, and access to a weapon like Black Sword. You don't need a traditional healer. Also in this team, you have 3 characters that have really long iframes. Keqing with her 4-5 attack and her burst, Zhongli with his charge attack and burst, and Venti with his burst. All this added on to dodging with your jumps and dashes, and you should never get hit by chunks of damage at a time. All the small ticks of passive damage you take can be easily recovered or mitigated with either your weapon or your shield and resistances. Xingqiu is the perfect 1-2 punch along with Keqing. She attacks so fast that Xingqiu's burst is extremely efficient. I was debating whether I like Albedo or Zhongli better, and it was close, but overall I think Zhongli provides more, especially when we're lacking a traditional healer in this comp. Zhongli provides extra crowd control that should be used in conjunction with Venti Burst so that you can petrify all your enemies, and then you follow that up with a bunch of Keqing charge attacks. Venti is the best animo here because you get so much value out of your Keqing ult. This team has some pretty basic combo sequences, but you can get creative with them to maximize your efficiency. The hard part of playing this team comes from learning how to dodge properly against all types of enemies, because taking chunk damage punishes you really hard with the absence of a healer to fall back on. However, if you can pull it off, this comp is extremely fun to play, and the combos feel extremely fluid. I'll also add that you can play Keqing both physical and electro, so being able to understand how to rotate team members and when to play each style will add on to how well you do in every situation the game throws you in. This team does well in all types of content. For Abyss, you can swap out Zhongli or Venti when you need specific elements to deal with Fatui floors. Overall, this team is not in my top 3, purely based on the fact that having an Electro DPS really limits you when it comes to endgame damage. However, most of this doesn't matter to you guys anyways, because if you like the character, you're just gonna play her anyways. My number 3 features Child, Fischl, Albedo, and Venti, or Jean and Sucrose. This takes the cake as far as the most satisfying team comp to play. The combo sequences are so smooth and your AoE damage is through the roof. You group everyone with Venti and drop your Oz and Solar Isotoma, then let Child go to town with his dagger form. Albedo's E uptime syncs up almost perfectly with Child E uptime, and Fischl can be your secondary DPS while you wait for your cooldowns. Fischl is in my opinion the best fit as support for Child. Her Oz is the only ability that can keep up with how fast Child attacks in dagger form. Albedo is pretty much Geo Oz and does AoE Geo damage that works especially well if your Child is equipped with Viridescent Hunt. You finish the comp up with a grouper like Venti and you'll shred mobs in seconds. If you're worried about the lack of sustain, you can always substitute Venti for the likes of Jean or Albedo for a healer and extra element to deal with Fatui. This team is very easy to pilot. Start off with your Venti group, then drop your turrets for Child to take over. The only difficulty you may run into when playing this comp is how to manage your Child's E cooldown. A simple rule of thumb is to only stay on Child for an elongated period of time if you know you can finish the fight before your daggers go on cooldown. You can gauge this easily by seeing how much more basic attacks you have left or if your burst in melee form would nuke your enemies. Otherwise, almost always you swap out your dagger form with when your Oz leaves the field. Overall, I love playing this comp a lot. It's certainly the flavor of the month for me. It's a lot of damage and you always have the option to proc large vaporized reactions against pyro enemies, especially those in floor 10. My number 2 features Klee, Mona, Bennett, and Sucrose, or Venti and Jean. I think it's to no one's surprise that a Klee comp takes my number 2 slot. Her AoE pyro damage allows her to excel in pretty much any encounter except those pesky pyro slimes. Mona is my favorite support for Klee because she's going to be the one proccing the huge vaporized reaction. She also acts as a form of AoE crowd control, an additional buff for your Klee to follow up on. Bennett gives us access to pyro resonance and a large steroid and heal. Finally, I like Sucrose the most because she gives you an insane amount of elemental mastery and also helps to pick up Klee bombs when she's swirling the enemies. This team is all about swapping in and out and dropping your skills and bursts. Build Mona as your burst support and make sure to proc your vaporize with Mona instead of Klee for the 2x damage. Against Fatui, swap out Bennett or Sucrose for a cryo character. This team build will not let you down in terms of explosive damage and insane firepower. My number 1 team build for 2020 features Diluc, Chungyoung, Bennett, and Sucrose or Venti. Without a doubt, Diluc is the strongest DPS we have in this game, and until we get a character that may surpass him, his team build will inevitably have the highest ceiling. There's actually 2 very good Diluc teams, but I chose this one because I really like how consistent you can get melt procs off. I think Chungyoung is the perfect fit for him, and with a couple of constellations, his ice field reduces your cooldowns significantly, meaning more uptime with your elemental bursts and your skills. Bennett is here for pyro resonance and insane healing and attack buffs. Sucrose is my animo of choice again, due to the sheer amount of elemental mastery you receive and the fact that your Diluc can reach enemies during her burst. Another variation you can run with Diluc, which is much more expensive, is playing Diluc, Mona, Bennett, and Venti. You play this comp quite like how you would play the Klee team build. However, I think with Diluc, he's less focused on deleting waves and mobs with AoE damage, rather his E is just an enhanced basic attack. In this case, having someone like Chungyoung means incredible single target damage that's on a very short cooldown. This comp is fairly easy to pick up, just drop Chungyoung's ice field and alternate between a regular basic attack and Diluc's E. This comp is also pretty cheap since most of the characters are 4 stars and improves significantly if you invest in a few constellations for them. For my favorite budget team builds, I looked at primarily teams with 4-star carries and supports. Sometimes I throw in a 5-star here and there if I really do believe it makes the team that much better. However, I've provided ample alternatives in these situations. My number 5 features Xiangling, Xinyan, Diona, and Sucrose. Xiangling is a great DPS option for any budget player, since Crescent Pike is one of the best DPS weapons in the game. Xinyan is here to provide pyro resonance and also boost your physical damage at P4. Diona is your healer and also your melt enabler, which works especially well when you sync both their bursts together. And finally, Sucrose ties it all together as a grouper and to also help with some AoE that Xiangling lacks outside of her burst. I'd build Xiangling with bolded 4-piece and focus on shredding enemies with your basic attacks. If you have a couple constellations on Xinyan, you can also swap her to your main DPS. My number 4 features Fischl, Bennett, Albedo or Xinyan, and Sucrose. As a Fischl DPS player from the very beginning, she's still an excellent choice if you're playing on a budget. Bennett works really well to buff and heal, and Albedo has the best energy of Oz because Crystallize enables your official P4 to activate. However, if you aren't able to get Albedo, Xingyan works perfectly fine as a Pyroresonance filler. Sucrose is here to tie everything up again because Fischl lacks a lot of AoE damage. If you're worried that Fischl can't do enough damage, don't be. You can clear floor 12 of the Abyss perfectly fine with Fischl being your main damage source. Even now, I still play Fischl as one of my main DPS units, and she's perfectly capable of clearing all of the game's content with ease. My number 3 features Kaya, Xiangling, Bennett, and Sucrose. Kaya is a very underrated DPS unit despite having really high base attack numbers. With the new Cryo set out in 1.2, he becomes even better. Run him with Xiangling for the melt enabler, even though you're only getting 1.5 times damage most of the time. Bennett for Pyro Resonance, healing and attack buff, and again Sucrose to help group to make the most out of your AoE skills and bursts. This comp is really capable. It's just really unpopular since he's one of the characters we get earlier on, and his animations are lackluster. My number 2 features Ningguang, Albedo or Noelle, Bennett, and Venti or Sucrose. Ningguang is an amazing DPS, and with a few constellations, can even be considered in the tier with the other 5-star carries. With the new Geo buffs coming in 1.3, she gets so much better. I really prefer to have Albedo as her primary support because his E works so well with Ningguang's P4 buff and the Geo debuff on enemies with the reworked Geo Resonance. However, if you can't, Noelle is fine to provide shielding for the extra damage percentage from Resonance. Bennett provides a huge steroid and great healing, and Venti is the preferred Animo that makes the most use out of your Ningguang C1. Animo is necessary because it fills the giant weakness that Ningguang has against waves of enemies. If you don't have Venti, Sucrose is fine. This team may have trouble dealing with Fatui or Abyss mages, just swap out your Resonance points or Venti if you need those extra elements. My number 1 features Razor, Fischl, Diona, and Xingyan. I don't need to do a lot of explaining here, primarily because this team build is featured above. I think Zhongli is definitely better than Xingyan for this comp, but she's still going to put in a lot of work for you. Razor is such a great character because he's so budget friendly. All the pieces you need to make him good are readily available as 4 stars and free to play characters. Because there aren't that many changes between this quote-unquote budget team and the one mentioned before, this is the best budget team build of 2020. Now, before we end this video, let's take a look at what you guys voted on for your favorite team comps. I put up a poll on YouTube with comps for my most popular team build videos, and here are what you guys voted. The number 3 most popular comp, taking 18% of the votes, is Diluc, Chongyong, Bennett, and Sucrose, or Venti and Jean. I'm actually surprised this wasn't higher considering he's one of the most popular DPS characters in the game. However, he still made the top 3 in the poll, so my viewers definitely still like playing this comp. If you're a big Diluc fan and haven't tried this team yet, I think you'll enjoy this a lot. The number 2 most popular comp, taking 22% of the votes, is Child, Fischl, Albedo, and Jean or Venti and Sucrose. This may also be a bit of recency bias just because Albedo is a fresh release. However, if there's one comp I recommend you try out over any one I've mentioned before, it's definitely this one. It's a ton of fun to play and makes the monotonous grinding artifacts or other materials go by a lot faster. Lastly, with 32% of the votes, the most popular team build voted by you guys is Keqing, Xingqiu, Zhongli, and Venti. With almost twice the votes as the 3rd place comp, I think a lot of you guys just like Keqing. She's by no doubt a fan favorite, and this comp really puts her in the limelight. This team build is the definition of flashy. There's so much style and swagger with the way you fight in this comp. It is the absolute perfect embodiment of how playing Keqing should feel. So there are my and your recommendations for the best team builds in Genshin Impact. If you're attached to a character that I didn't mention here, I might already have a video about that unit. You can go and check out my whole playlist where I break down individual character builds more in depth. I've enjoyed my time playing Genshin Impact with so many unique characters, and I can't wait for what 2021 has in store for all of us. If you're still waiting around for Xiao or Ayaka perhaps, then hit that subscribe button because you can count on me to do a team build video for those characters as soon as they're out. Thanks for watching. Till next time.